Good morning, it's Friday. I'm meteorologist David Aldridge with Captain Accurate Weather. Happy to be here. I've been drinking a lot of tea since the ragweed's kind of taken me out of commission a little bit with my voice. But if you can bear with me, I've got some very important information to share with you regarding the Vols game, also some future smoke, and possibly some rain showers for us today. But if you're on the call, let me know. You can see a little bit of ground clutter from the ultimate Doppler radar. I'll take this full screen. Oftentimes when we see this type of configuration around the radar, it alarms people. They think, boy, that's a lot of rain. Actually, it's just kind of more or less in a clear air mode, so to speak. We have mostly clear skies in some spots, maybe partly cloudy in others. But the ultimate Doppler radar, presented by A1 Fincham Heating and Cooling, they are focused on customer satisfaction. Give them a call at 865-947-4267. I have their information at the top of this Facebook post. And they're family owned and operated since 1982. Notice we don't see that type of configuration, excuse me, across East Tennessee this morning across the statewide radar, or it's basically the composite view, but there are some storms across Arkansas and moving into southern parts of Missouri that's basically over there. That's the big picture. More heat concerns from Houston to Dallas today, where they may in fact have some severe weather possibly. We'll talk about that here coming up in a few moments. But as far as visibility, we have some fog in spots, maybe not so much in Knoxville, but it's down about 5 miles in Cumberland County. 7 miles in Oneida, Middlesboro about 7 miles, so there's still some concerns, maybe some patches of fog this morning. Temperature 70 degrees in Knoxville, 65 Nashville, but dare I say mid-50s. Jackson, Tennessee, kind of like the standalone, but there are some 50s across the western end of the state. 66 Johnson City to the north and east. Here are your current readings. And you got to see, well, maybe it's not that humid. Dew points are in the mid-60s, but we have 70 degrees at the airport, 68 Newport, 64 in Crossville. It is Friday. We've made it to the end of the week. If I can make it through this particular recording and Facebook Live and YouTube Live, because I'm on both, I will do my best. We also want to talk about a major hurricane. We have a Category 5. Category 5 hurricane in the middle of the Atlantic, and anytime we get that type of strength in the storm, it tends to get a lot of folks a little nervous, a little uneasy, and we'll be talking about potential path. I see Wanda says the ragweed needs to be gone. Hope you feel better soon. Looking forward to cooler temps. Excuse me. And Fred says, good morning, David. I'm also on YouTube. If you're over here, I have actually been promoting the YouTube channel, but if you're on here, leave me a comment. I'd love to see you over here as well. So when we look at the current temperatures, 68 in Oak Ridge, 68 Maryville, and 68 in Morristown. Those are our current readings as you head out the door on a Friday. I'm wearing my checkerboard tie today as I'm excited about the Vols game, as I'm sure you are too. And if you're going to the game, you may want to bring with you a little bit of rain gear, because certainly you can't take the umbrella inside Neyland, but you may have your Go Big Orange tent. And if you are, you're going to probably want to stay dry as best you can, because this is how I expect tailgating to go. Doesn't mean it's going to rain everywhere all the time, but there will be dark skies at times. So if you look to the north, the east, the west, the south, you'll see some storms in the distance. I think temperatures have a good chance of getting into the lower to mid 80s, about 84. However, there is that possibility that we'll cool back into the 70s for the game. So I have modified my Austin P, Tennessee forecast. Go Big Orange, 5 o'clock Saturday. It's on ESPN+. Kickoff temperature about 79 and should cool back to 69 by the fourth quarter. So might want to make sure that you're dressed for the weather. It's not going to be all that hot, but the showers and storms will be certainly present during the course of the game, certainly at 5 o'clock start. Here's the dew point temperatures this morning. You got 65 in Knoxville, 63 in Rockwood, and 63 in Wartburg. So these are not as high as they were just a day ago. 68 in Sevierville, maybe a little sticky, but as you can see, this humidity isn't going to go away all that fast. It's still going to be rather stuffy this afternoon. Excuse me. And you can see most of the green starts to retreat back toward the east, maybe by 5 o'clock, and then it kind of just ebbs and flows. So the bulk of the humidity will be centered around Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. As we can move back into the 5 o'clock time frame, this is kickoff. Will it be sticky? Well, perhaps, maybe not so much at the stadium, but there'll be some humidity in parts of East Tennessee. And then you can see by 8 o'clock Sunday, there's still a little bit of humidity. So we've got the potential for showers and storms both weekend days. That's not probably the best news you want to hear heading into the first home game for the Vols this Saturday. Okay, wind speeds, excuse me, And my apologies to you for my voice. Ragweed has taken hold of my voice, no doubt, and it's kind of raging. So if I'm an illustration of that, that's probably why you're hearing a little bit of rasp in my voice. By the way, tracking the clouds, you can see those are in the picture too this morning. And you can see that by the time we get into, say, this afternoon, for a good blend of hazy sun and clouds, but the potential for some spotty storms will persist, especially east of Morristown. So let's get to the sunrise sunset time. 7:13. There we go. 7:13 this morning is when the sun comes up. It'll be setting at 7:54. So our days are getting shorter. We look at the bus stop forecast. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Maybe I just don't need to project as much. But the bus stop forecast for today will take us to about 81 by 2 o'clock. So picking up will be about 11 degrees warmer than it is when you start the day this morning, because 70 is the official McGee-Tyson Airport temperature right now. We have expectation of the mid-upper 70s for the Plateau, about 86 for Knoxville, and 84 for Morristown. So if you want to talk about a variety of temperatures, we have them. It's like a potpourri when you've got a 9-degree difference between Cumberland County and Knox County. So 77 Crossville, 86 Knox County, Knoxville. There's going to be a wide variety of numbers. So dress for the 70s and 80s. It really depends on where you are. So this is probably the map I can probably adhere to, testify to. Ragweed is high and will continue to be a little raspy on both throats, headache behind the eye. It affects so many people in different ways. We could spend all morning on that, which I won't do. But just know we're not going to see any kind of relief until we get into the frosty season of October. You say, what are you talking about? Well, usually it starts with trees. Then it transitions into grasses, and there's usually some overlap. But as you head into the time of the fall, ragweed tends to start to crescendo and reach its peak, usually around the Labor Day holiday and thereafter. But the average first frost and freeze are on your screen. You usually have to wait to mid to late October to get a first frost. That can help. And that's not to say that we couldn't get it sooner, but that's the average or the median from the National Weather Service in Morristown. November 2nd is when we usually see our first freeze over the last 30 years, and that's an average again, but median first freeze could occur before, could occur later, but usually it's not as, the ragweed pollen accounts, or I should say, are not as high by the time you get into October, but it can be rather tricky. Good morning to you. I see anyone who might be on the call, let me know on YouTube, and I'm looking over here. Carrie says, happy Friday. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Carrie, for being here. Rebecca says, I feel your pain. The ragweed is awful. So how can I illustrate that better than telling you I deal with it too? But hope you feel better soon. Thank you, Captain. Said Rebecca Collins, and she's on Facebook. Nancy Moses says, good morning. Bring some rain. Have a great day, David. And then Wanda Poe mentioning about the ragweed as well. So if you look on the screen, you might want to take notes. I'm taking notes. It is only the 8th of September. So you're talking about another month, almost a month and a half before we get our first frost. But as you saw from the previous slide, usually ragweed is at its worst during the September Labor Day timeframe. We have had a little bit of have had a little bit of smoke as a problem maybe in West Tennessee this morning, where there is some wildfire smoke in yellow, as illustrated here by the modeling from Memphis to Jackson. And a lot of that begins to work its way out of the state as we head over the next 12 to 14 hours. You can see it's trying to push down toward Tupelo and back toward Mississippi. Not a whole lot of smoke perhaps by this evening here, and even where we have it, it's pretty faint. You can see a little closer view here. This is about 7:45, a little less than an hour from now. But a little hint of some smoke may be in the air, and that could add a little bit more to the haze to the atmosphere. Okay, so that's the smoke. Got to bring you up to the big story. Nationwide, we have a big story that's brewing in the Atlantic. Now, there is some concern that this could, big emphasis on could affect the eastern seaboard, but particularly maybe New England or Nova Scotia by middle of next week. That's not a shoe-in. That's not a guarantee. It's one of those things we're going to have to watch very closely, and I can illustrate that very closely with the next slide. But there's Lee in the center of your screen, and most recently, we have a new tropical storm named Margot. So Margot, not going to be a problem for the U.S. That'll stay out in the Atlantic. So we're going to focus on Lee here this morning. And one thing you'll notice, these little spaghetti plots are representative of individual models, individual solutions and algorithms, and it takes it all over the map. One or two ways it moves it further north, Some toward the Peary go further north. Really, it's going to have to depend on the steering currents, what drives it by that time frame. And that can change day to day. So we'll be watching Lee very closely. But look at this. At the top of your screen, you see 165 miles per hour. That is a strong Category 5 storm. As I mentioned last night in my video, that these types of storms tend to be very off in terms of the intensity. But by 2 o'clock today, they got this at 180. So that's not me saying that. That's the Hurricane Center. They think this could have 180 mile an hour winds. We're going to look at the categories here on my next slide, but I want to show you where this is projected by the Hurricane Center. It doesn't stay at 180. By the time we get to Wednesday, it looks like it's back to 140, but it's still a powerful storm. And you can see the cone gets a little wider as some of those spaghetti plots begin to diverge and go in different directions. So put it in context, anything that's 157 plus would be a Category 5, and that's catastrophic damage. Not might occur, but will occur with those types of storms. So we want to watch this closely. I want to show you this, how some of the models take this storm. That would be Lee at the bottom of your screen, Margot on the right, which is why we're not really focused on Margot. But even from the modeling, it shows a pretty well-defined eye by 13th of September. That's next Wednesday. And watch where this thing tends to go. Moves right up to the north towards maybe Maine, maybe Nova Scotia. So it's not a shoo-in that it's here. It could move 100 miles east. It could move 100 miles west. So there's a lot to see. And this would be about the 15th. And that's a week from today. So a week from today, a long time from now, a lot to see how some changes could occur with a storm like this, and how powerful this thing gets is certainly worth watching. Wanted to point out to you the lead times. Hurricane lead times can change quite a bit, 6-7 days, usually when these storms come across like Lee is. But the ones that develop closer inland usually have less warning, sometimes less than 2 days. But from New England, it never hurts to get ready. The last time they had a major hurricane, I believe it was Hurricane Bob from 1991. So you've got a storm that's 32 years ago. New England hasn't been really impacted by a major hurricane, so they may be out of practice, right? So it's been a long time, but we want to watch this again very closely. Atlantic names, we could probably make Margot a little orange there because Nigel is the next name on the list, followed by Ophelia. So watching this very closely. I got another note as I try to rest my voice, but I will look to your comments. Darcy says, happy Friday. And Wanda says, be glad when you tell your winter outlook. Some say it will be a bad winter. I'm glad I have your premium service. Thank you for being there, Wanda. And y'all have a safe and blessed weekend. Go Vols, says Fred. But keep in mind, the rain that we see today may be spotty, but it's going to be increasingly numerous as you head toward Morristown and the Tri-Cities. Mainly east is where I expect most of the population of the storms to develop this afternoon for the drive home and beyond. So showers and storms this weekend. Both Saturday and Sunday has the potential for some downpours. Some rain for the Vols game, a possibility. Plan on that. And if it doesn't rain, particularly at the stadium, consider it a bonus. And highs in the 80s, but if you get the rain, you'll be in the 70s for most of that ball game. So that's why I say make sure you have a rain jacket, something to keep you dry. All right, temperature right now, 70 degrees, north wind at 3, relative humidity at 84%. Precipitation chances, boy, it goes all the way up to 80% next week by Wednesday's account, which will keep our temperatures in the low to mid 70s for highs based on the data I'm seeing this morning. So we'll keep an eye on this 60% chance on Saturday. I left a 40% chance on Sunday, but if this thing basically stalls, Sunday could be a repeat performance that Saturday brings, where it will stay unsettled, but not necessarily severe. All right, Valley Planner. How warm do we get today? Generally low to mid 80s. I mentioned the 70s will be more common for highs in the plateau today from Crossville to Jamestown to Oneida. I left a 20% chance of rain here in the valley. Now, speaking of severe weather, could we see some scattered severe storms in parts of the country? The answer is absolutely yes. Some hot spots today. Take the focal point down toward Dallas, maybe to a lesser extent Houston, but certainly Tyler, Beaumont, Texas, and Shreveport for scattered severe storms. Also some hot spots today. If you have family in Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, or even Washington, D.C., but just some thunderstorms here. Notice there's not a whole lot of coloring in Crossville or Jamestown. The best chance for thunder, I think, is going to be east of Morristown later this afternoon. What about Saturday? Here at 6:54, you can see there's some hot spots, maybe not quite as numerous in terms of the coloring. Isolated severe storms around Dallas, College Station. Heading back to the north and east, you can see around New England, some isolated severe storms there. But by, say, Saturday, we have some run-of-the-mill thunderstorms that could produce some locally heavy rain. And Sunday, not a whole lot in terms of severe weather. A little area not far from Denver and parts of, we'll say, Nebraska, could be Kansas, and parts of the Rockies. So here's the severe risk. Not a whole lot here. Futurecast. Almost like I want to let the maps tell the story as my voice tends to rust here. But you can see some pop-up storms. Maybe a little bit of the light green is over-depicting some of the data and the moisture. But this is why I say 5 o'clock. Most of it's going to be toward the Tri-Cities and east of Morristown. So if you drive home today and you're in this area, that's where most of the rain will be. And even at 7 o'clock tonight, it's still raining potentially from Greenville to Morristown, up toward Johnson City, and maybe a few in the valley as well. Notice the front, it's basically stalled. That's why you see the red-blue line that stretches across the Carolinas. But we have the potential by the game time, some of these storms spin in here. So there's 5 o'clock. If it's not raining for kickoff, it could certainly be raining during the halftime show, during the time that the Pride is on the field. So I'll go be watching this closely. And then Sunday, another boundary basically stalling with more potential for showers and storms. So it's going to be a lather, repeat, and rinse type of situation. Lather, rinse, and repeat. All right. At 6:56, thank you for your patience. My voice is a little battered today, thanks in part to Ragweed. 66 in Oak Ridge, 76 in Morristown. Lots of clouds, maybe some pop-up showers at 5 o'clock. Geographically, I would say Morristown East is more favored. It's not exclusive, but that's where we'll see most of the storms this afternoon. Possibly Maryville as late as 11 o'clock tonight. And then it pushes out in time for a dry start for tailgaters early tomorrow morning. Heading into midday, looks like this on this particular model. Some storms around Newport, where Wanda Poe is. And then by 5 o'clock, doesn't show much in South Knoxville, but it does around Maryville. So that's where some of these storms may impact, at least briefly. Won't necessarily be the whole time of the game, but may certainly darken the skies. All right, 86, hazy sun and clouds, spotty storms. As we look for a high today of 77 in Oneida, 77 Crossville, 86 Maryville, and 84 in Morristown. Temperatures around the state, low to mid-80s, 85 Chattanooga. And we look at tonight's forecast, some evening storms will fade. Patchy fog will develop overnight, but look for a partly to mostly cloudy sky. Tonight we're down to 61 Wartburg, 61 Sevierville, 63 in Morristown, 62 in Newport, as I'm looking at the temperatures here overnight tonight. All right, drum roll, please. Finally, we get to the 7-day. 84 on Saturday. Showers and storms. Could easily be a 60% chance of rain on Sunday as well. So I said, again, with the heating of the day, a stalled boundary, it's going to be one day, looks like just like the other. 85, though, maybe a stray speck of rain on Monday before we load again for some spotty storms Tuesday. Best chance of rain next week comes in on Wednesday, and much cooler with high temperatures around 74 degrees. Didn't know if I'd make it, but thanks to your patience, I got through the 7-day forecast. Marilyn says, happy Friday. I'm up very early. She says she's sewing a quilt top. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you, Marilyn. I will rest my voice. Janet Potts says, have a great weekend. Get well soon. Go Vols. And Danny says, good morning, David. Hope you have a great Friday. Go Vols. Happy to have the Vols. Again, I'm wearing my tie today, my checkerboard tie, as our first home game, can you believe it, is almost here. Anyway, my name is David Aldrich. I'm actually finishing a minute early. Isn't that amazing? We'll see you here next time. Have a great weekend. Take care.